On my birthday, my family laughed and said, "If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice." So I vanished without a word, and when their lives crumbled without me, they finally realized the price of taking me for granted. On the day I turned 32, I found myself standing in my own living room, holding a cheap grocery store cake that I had bought for myself. The faint smell of frosting and candle wax mixed with the murmur of laughter around me. Laughter that cut deeper than any knife ever could. My family sat comfortably on my couches, plates in hand, joking and chatting as if everything was perfect. My mother, with that familiar glint of cruel amusement in her eyes, decided to share what she called a little birthday truth. She smiled sweetly and said, "If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even miss you." The room fell silent for a split second, then burst into roaring laughter. My father nodded proudly, my brother clutched his stomach, my sister had tears streaming down her face from laughing so hard. Even my aunt and uncle, the ones I had driven 3 hours to pick up earlier that morning, joined in the chorus of cruel chuckles. At that moment, I felt something shift inside me. Something heavy, something final. It was as if a curtain had been lifted, and I could finally see the role I had been assigned in this so-called family. The punchline was me. The joke was my existence. I realized that being the family disappointment isn't a title you're given overnight. It's something that slowly builds, layer by layer, until one day someone says it out loud and everyone nods because it's true to them. I had always known I was different. My brother worked at father's company, climbing the corporate ladder with pride. My sister married into wealth and flaunted it at every gathering. Me? I was a software contractor who worked from home. I lived quietly, peacefully, or so I thought. But that day, I learned that in their eyes, quiet didn't mean peaceful. It meant pathetic. I placed the cake on the coffee table without cutting it, my hands trembling slightly, and asked calmly if anyone would like to explain what was so funny. My mother, still wiping tears of laughter, said she was just being honest. I was so independent, so disconnected, that no one would notice if I was gone. My father added, almost proudly, that it wasn't cruel, just factual. I rarely came to family dinners. I didn't work in the family business. I had no wife, no kids, nothing to carry on the name. "What exactly do you contribute?" he asked with a smile that made me want to leave right then. My brother, smirking, gestured around my house and said at least I was good for something. I knew what he meant even before my sister explained it as if speaking to a child. "Where else would we have these gatherings?" she said casually. "My apartment's too small, and he lives 2 states away. Mom and Dad's house is a mess, and yours has that nice big kitchen, perfect for hosting." My mother nodded, adding that it was the least I could do, considering I had so much space and no real family to fill it. Her words stung. A cold weight settled in my chest, sinking deep into my bones. I looked around that room, the same room I had paid for with my own hard work, the same walls that had heard my quietest victories and loneliest nights, and I finally asked the question that would change everything. "So, are you saying the only value I bring to this family is as a free venue? Or maybe a bank?" The room fell silent. I had always known I was different. My brother worked at father's company, climbing the corporate ladder with pride. My sister married into wealth and flaunted it at every gathering. Me? I was a software contractor who worked from home. I lived quietly, peacefully, or so I thought. But that day, I learned that in their eyes, quiet didn't mean peaceful. It meant pathetic. I placed the cake on the coffee table without cutting it, my hands trembling slightly, and asked calmly if anyone would like to explain what was so funny. My mother, still wiping tears of laughter, said she was just being honest. I was so independent, so disconnected, that no one would notice if I was gone. My father added, almost proudly, that it wasn't cruel, just factual. I rarely came to family dinners. I didn't work in the family business. I had no wife, no kids, nothing to carry on the name. "What exactly do you contribute?" he asked with a smile that made me want to leave right then. My brother, smirking, gestured around my house and said at least I was good for something. I knew what he meant even before my sister explained it, as if speaking to a child. Where else would we have these gatherings? She said casually. My apartment's too small, and he lives 2 states away. Mom and Dad's house is a mess, and yours has that nice big kitchen. Perfect for hosting. My mother nodded, adding that it was the least I could do, considering I had so much space and no real family to fill it. Her words stung. A cold weight settled in my chest, sinking deep into my bones. I looked around that room, the same room I had paid for with my own hard work, the same walls that had heard my quietest victories and loneliest nights, and I finally asked the question that would change everything. So, are you saying the only value I bring to this family is as a free venue? Or maybe a bank? The room fell silent. My father cleared his throat and said I was being dramatic. These are family events, he said firmly. Family helps family. I asked him, when exactly has this family helped me? My mother's face tightened, her smile fading. We raised you, she snapped. We gave you life, education, opportunity. Everything you have is because of us. As she spoke, I started doing the math in my head. A habit that comes naturally to someone who has spent years tracking every dollar just to stay afloat. 40 family gatherings over the last 5 years, all hosted in my house. Food, drinks, cleaners, repairs, at least $1,500 each time. That alone was $60,000. Then the favors. $8,000 for father's car when it broke down. $12,000 for my sister's wedding when her in-laws backed out. $15,000 for my brother's down payment. $95,000 in total. None repaid. None even acknowledged. And all from the same man they claimed wouldn't be missed if he vanished tomorrow. I spoke those numbers out loud. Calmly, slowly, watching their faces change from confusion to embarrassment to anger. My mother tried to interrupt, saying, "You can't put a price on family." But I kept going until the room fell silent. My father rose from his seat, his voice hard. "You're ruining your own birthday party with this nonsense." I looked him in the eye and said, "There's no party to ruin. Just a group of people who came for free food and entertainment at the expense of someone they claim is worthless." The room went still. My aunt, red-faced, said I was being ungrateful. I turned to her and asked, "Do you remember asking me to co-sign your car loan 2 years ago?" Her expression went pale. That was the moment I decided I was done. I told them all calmly to leave. No anger, no yelling, just a quiet, steady finality in my voice. My brother laughed, saying I was overreacting. My mother begged. My father shouted. My sister tried to play peacemaker. But I just walked to the door, opened it, and waited. One by one they left. Some muttering, some crying, some still trying to convince themselves that I was the one who'd gone crazy. When the door finally closed behind the last of them, the silence felt both suffocating and liberating at the same time. I sat on the couch for hours, staring at that uncut cake until the candles melted into little pools of wax. Around 11 that night, I made a decision that would change my life forever. The next morning, I contacted a real estate agent and listed my house. I moved my work fully online, canceled all local contracts, and opened new bank accounts at a different institution. I hired a lawyer to draft official loan repayment demands with 30 days notice before legal action. For the first time in years, I was taking control. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 job offers in different cities. I chose one that was 800 miles away, far enough that they couldn't just drop by, close enough that I could still breathe the same air if I ever wanted to, though I knew I wouldn't. My phone rang constantly that week. My mother called the most, saying I needed to calm down and apologize for embarrassing everyone. I told her I was moving. She laughed, saying I was bluffing, trying to manipulate them. I stayed silent until she hung up. Then my father called, using his stern business voice, saying I was being childish and reckless. I asked him if he'd received the letter from my lawyer about the car loan. The silence that followed said everything. He called me petty, told me family didn't sue family, and hung up. My sister tried to guilt me by bringing her daughter to my door, saying the little one missed her uncle. I looked at the girl who didn't even look up from her iPad and told my sister not to use her child as a tool. She left angry, calling me cold and heartless. But I wasn't heartless. I was finally free. The weeks that followed felt like watching the world rebuild itself from the ground up. I had sold my house within days of listing it. A young couple with 2 children fell in love with the place the moment they walked in, the same place my family had used as their playground for years without gratitude. Signing those papers felt like severing the last thread tying me to a life built on obligation. I packed my belongings, box by box, every item whispering a memory I didn't want anymore. The cake plate from that birthday sat on the counter until the very end, untouched, a silent reminder of the moment I stopped belonging. My lawyer's demand letters went out, and almost immediately the phone calls began. Angry voices, desperate messages, self-righteous lectures. No checks, just noise. I filed small claims cases for the lesser amounts and hired a collections attorney for the rest. The reactions were predictable. My brother called first, pretending to be the reasonable one. He said everyone had overreacted, that they'd apologize if I dropped the legal nonsense. "You're really going to sue your own family?" he asked. I replied calmly, "What alternative would you suggest for recovering $95,000? He said I could afford to lose it, that I made enough money. I asked him why my success made their debts any less real. He had no answer. He hung up. 2 weeks before my move, my mother showed up unannounced. The house was nearly empty, just boxes and echoes left. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days, and for a brief moment, I almost felt sympathy. But then she spoke. She told me I had to stop this, that I needed to call off the lawyers, cancel the move, fix what I'd broken. I asked her why. She hesitated, then said it, "Because we need you." Those 3 words, spoken so desperately, should have moved me, but they didn't. "You need me?" I repeated. "For what?" I thought no one would miss me if I disappeared. She looked flustered, said I was twisting her words, that she'd been joking. I asked her to explain the joke. What was the funny part? The silence that followed was deafening. Then the truth spilled out. Father's company was struggling. Brother's division was failing. The family was on the brink of losing everything. They needed me. Not for love, not for connection, but for money. Alone. $50,000 to keep them afloat. I actually laughed out loud. The audacity was almost impressive. My mother looked horrified that I found it funny. "We could lose everything," she said, her voice breaking. "That's not my problem," I replied simply. She stared at me like I'd become a stranger. "Of course, it's your problem," she snapped. "We're family." And then came the line that defined her entire existence. Family helps family. I looked her dead in the eye and asked, "When did you ever help me?" She tried to speak, but every word she offered was a hollow excuse. "We raised you. We fed you. We gave you life." She couldn't see that what she called love was control, that what she called support was debt. I told her no, a simple word that felt like freedom. She threatened me then, saying I'd regret this, that I'd come crawling back when I realized I needed them. I smiled and said, "Maybe you should remember that on my birthday. You told me I wasn't worth missing." She left with tears of rage in her eyes. That night, my brother sent a long group text. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, accusing me of destroying the family over hurt feelings and a few jokes. He called me selfish, petty, ungrateful, said I was proving them right about being cold and disconnected. I blocked every number. I blocked every email. And then I slept, really slept, for the first time in years. The move went smoothly. My new city was smaller, calmer, kinder. The streets were clean, the air fresh, the people strangers with no preconceived notions of who I was supposed to be. My new job was remote with occasional office days, better pay, better benefits, and most importantly, peace. I bought a modest condo, enough space for one person who finally knew what freedom felt like. I joined a local hiking group, met new people, and for the first time in my life, I felt light. No phone calls, no guilt, no obligations. 3 months later, an email found me. From my aunt. Somehow, she tracked down my new address. Her message was long, rambling, desperate. Father's company had officially declared bankruptcy. Brother lost his job. Sister's husband filed for divorce. My parents were losing their home. Could I please help? I read it 3 times. I waited for guilt, for satisfaction, for anything. But I felt nothing. Just a calm detachment. Like watching a movie where I already knew the ending. I typed a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I wrote one sentence. Does anyone miss me yet? The reply came within minutes. An explosion of insults. Cruel, heartless, selfish. Then silence. I blocked her too. 6 months passed. I was thriving. My job was going great. I'd been promoted once already. I'd started dating someone from my hiking group. A woman who knew nothing of my past and loved me as I was. Not who my family decided I should be. For the first time, I wasn't the family failure. I was just me. The court cases wrapped up. I won most by default because they never showed. I recovered $30,000 through settlements and garnishments. Not the full amount, but enough to feel vindicated. Father's bankruptcy created a paper trail that proved every debt. Karma, in its quiet, efficient way, had done the rest. Then one afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. It was my brother, reaching out through a mutual friend. Against my better judgment, I answered. His voice was measured, almost practiced. He started with an apology, saying they'd all been under stress, that things got out of hand. And then, as if reading from a script, he pivoted. I have a business idea, he said. A startup. I could use an investor. I hung up mid-sentence. Weeks later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. From my sister. No manipulación. No demands. Just an apology. She said she'd been in therapy since her divorce, that she finally realized how deeply she'd enabled the family's behavior. She said she didn't expect forgiveness, only wanted me to know she was truly sorry. I didn't respond, but for the first time, I believed her. Trust, however, was something I no longer gave freely. My mother tried again. Flowers delivered to my office. A card saying she missed me. I donated the flowers to a hospital. Then a gift basket arrived at my condo. Same message, same result. No response. But then came the one visit I never expected. My father showed up at my building. Older, smaller, defeated. He asked for 5 minutes. Against my instincts, I let him speak. He told me everything, the bankruptcy, the collapse, the blame. He said he finally knew what it felt like to be invisible. I understand now, he said softly. I don't blame you for leaving. Then he shook my hand like a businessman and walked away. I sat there for 20 minutes after he left, staring at the spot where he'd stood. It didn't feel like victory. It didn't feel like revenge. It just felt empty. Because real revenge isn't a fire that burns bright. It's the silence that follows when there's nothing left to burn. A year passed. My life blossomed quietly. My sister flew out to visit one day, asked me for coffee. We talked for hours like adults, not pawns in our parents' game. She explained that our family had always operated like a corporation. Roles assigned, hierarchy maintained, emotion suppressed. I was the provider without a title. She was the trophy daughter. My brother the golden child. And that birthday joke? It wasn't a joke. It was punishment. Power play after I refused a loan. I finally understood. I'd been playing a game I never agreed to, and the only way to win was to walk away. Now, a year later, I'm getting married. A small ceremony. Just friends and my partner's family, real family, the kind that chooses you, not the kind that owns you. When someone asked if my family would be attending, I said, no, I don't have one. And for the first time, that felt true and peaceful. Her mother smiled and said, family is what you make it. And I knew she was right. I donated half the money I recovered to a charity that helps people escape toxic homes. The rest went toward my future. My life, the one I built without them. Do I regret it? Not for a second. Because some relationships don't die, they rot. And sometimes walking away isn't cruelty, it's survival. If you believe in choosing yourself when no one else will, hit that subscribe button, tap the hype, and remember, sometimes disappearing isn't the end, it's the beginning.